My name is Donato Marchetti, and your future, for better or worse, is now tied to mine.
She texted the mafia lord by mistake, surrendering herself for a forced marriage to save her mother. The glass of water trembled in Alessia's hand, the ripples a tiny echo of the seismic fear shaking her entire body. The beeping of the heart monitor was a relentless countdown, each chirp a hammer blow against her composure. Her mother, Isabella, was a pale ghost against the stiff hospital sheets, her breathing a shallow, raspy struggle. "The procedure cannot wait another week, Miss Rossi, doctor," Mancini said, his voice softened with a practiced, helpless sympathy. "Her heart is failing. Without the surgery, I'm sorry." The number on the preliminary invoice was a physical blow. 300,000 euros. It was an abstract figure, a fantasy of debt. Alessia's mind raced, a frantic hamster on a wheel going nowhere. She had nothing. The waitressing job, the secretarial gig, it was all pocket change against this mountain. Her phone felt like a lead weight in her pocket. There was only one person who could access that kind of money, the one person she and her mother had fled from. Her father, Vincenzo Rossi. With fingers numb with dread, she pulled it out. Her thumb hovered over his name. The last time they'd spoken, his words had been etched into her soul with acid. "You will marry Lorenzo Lombardi. It is the only way our family survives. Your mother's condition is a burden you cannot bear alone. Agree to be his wife, and all her problems disappear." She had called him a monster. She and her mother had packed a single bag each and run. Now, that running had led here, to this sterile room, to the sound of her mother dying. Tears of pure fury and desperation blurred her vision. She opened a new text message. She didn't type his name. She used the number he'd forced her to save for urgent business. Her thumbs flew over the screen, each word feeling like a betrayal of her very soul. "You win. Mom is at Ospedale San Marco. The bill is 300,000 euros for the heart surgery. Pay it, and I will marry Lorenzo. Just save her." She hit send before she could lose her nerve. The message whooshed away, carrying her freedom with it. She slumped into the chair, burying her face in her hands. It was done. She had sold herself. Her phone buzzed barely 10 seconds later. Shock jolted through her. That was too fast, even for him. The message was not what she expected. "Who is Lorenzo?" A cold dread, entirely different from the fear for her mother, began to trickle down her spine. This wasn't her father's number. The area code was different. A wrong number. She had sent her surrender to a perfect stranger. Panic seized her. "Sorry," she typed back, her fingers slipping. "Wrong number. Please ignore." The response was immediate. "What surgery? Your name." This wasn't a request. It was a command. Alessia's heart hammered against her ribs. Something was terribly wrong. She dropped the phone into her bag as if it had burned her, deciding to ignore it. It was just a wrong number. A weird, intrusive wrong number. She focused on her mother, on adjusting the oxygen tube, on the fragile rise and fall of her chest. The phone buzzed again, and again, insistent, ominous. Against her better judgment, she looked. "Alessia Rossi. Your mother, Isabella, is in room 412. Do not move." The blood drained from her face. How? How could they know that? She shot to her feet and rushed to the window, her breath catching in her throat. The parking lot below was normal. Then she saw them. Not one, not two, but 5 black, sleek Maserati Levantes, gliding into the lot like a pack of silent predators. They didn't park in spaces. They formed a perfect, intimidating perimeter around the main entrance. This was no coincidence. This was a response. She watched, paralyzed, as the doors of the lead car opened. A man emerged, tall and built with an athlete's grace, encased in a suit that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. He didn't look up at the windows. He simply walked toward the entrance, another larger man falling into step behind him. They moved with a terrifying purpose. "No," Alessia whispered, backing away from the window. This was her fault. Her stupid, desperate text had summoned something. Someone. The door to the hospital room opened without a knock. The man from the car stood there, his presence instantly shrinking the room. His gaze swept past her, landed on her mother, then settled on her. His eyes were a chilling, calculating gray, like a winter storm. "Alessia Rossi," he said. His voice was a low, controlled baritone that vibrated through the silence. It wasn't a question. "Who are you?" she demanded, hating the tremor in her voice. She moved instinctively, placing herself between him and her mother's bed. "Get out." He ignored her, his eyes flicking to the chart at the end of the bed. "The prognosis is poor without immediate intervention. That's none of your business. I'm calling security. They are already aware of my presence, he said, his tone utterly flat. He finally looked directly at her, and she felt pinned in place. Your text was not an error. It was a provocation. It was a mistake. I was trying to text my father, Vincenzo Rossi, a man of limited ambition and poor judgment. The stranger took a single step into the room. The man you agreed to marry, Lorenzo Lombardi, is a cockroach who steals from me. Your marriage would have given him a veneer of legitimacy he does not deserve. You, Alessia, have just become a strategic asset. I am not an asset. I am a person. Leave us alone. That is no longer an option. He nodded to the man behind him. Make the arrangements. Transfer Mrs. Rossi to the private facility at the Villa Conti. She will have the finest cardiologist in Italy there within the hour. You can't just move her. You can't do this. He turned his stormy eyes back to her. I can, and I am. This is no longer a negotiation. You are both now under my protection. This isn't protection. This is kidnapping. For the first time, a flicker of something not emotion, but sharp intelligence crossed his face. If I wanted to kidnap you, you would already be in the trunk of a car. Your mother would be dead. This is a strategic relocation. Come willingly, and she receives the treatment she needs. Resist. He left the threat hanging, more powerful for being unspoken. Tears of sheer helplessness streamed down Alessia's face. She looked at her mother, so fragile, so close to death. This man, this monster, was offering the one thing she couldn't get for herself. A chance for her mother to live. But the price was her own freedom, her very life. Who are you? She whispered again, her defiance crumbling into despair. He moved closer, until she could smell the faint, clean scent of sandalwood and power on him. He stopped just inches away, his height forcing her to look up. My name is Donato Marchetti, he said, his voice dropping even lower. And your future, for better or worse, is now tied to mine. The transition from the hospital to the Villa Conti was a blur of silent, terrifying efficiency. Donato's men, led by the stoic enforcer he called Silas, moved Isabella's hospital bed with a care that contradicted their imposing presence. Alessia was shepherded into the back of a Maserati, the leather seat cool and unyielding against her skin. Donato sat beside her, a silent, brooding statue. He didn't speak, didn't threaten, didn't reassure. His mere existence was the threat. The Villa Conti was not a home. It was a fortress disguised as a masterpiece of modern Italian architecture. It sat atop a secluded cliff, all sharp angles, glass, and pale stone, surrounded by a high wall that hummed with invisible energy. Electronic security. Inside, it was a study in minimalist luxury, cold, beautiful, and utterly soulless. Her mother was whisked away to a room that had been converted into a state-of-the-art medical suite. A doctor and 2 nurses were already waiting, their expressions professionally neutral. Alessia tried to follow, but a firm hand on her arm stopped her. It was Silas. This way, Miss Rossi, he said, his voice a low rumble. He led her to a different wing, to a bedroom with a panoramic window overlooking the churning sea below. The view was breathtaking. The cage was gilded, but the bars were very, very real. Where is my mother? I need to see her. The doctor is with her. You will be informed, Silas replied. And then he was gone, the door clicking shut with a finality that echoed in her soul. For 2 days, she was treated with cold civility. Food was brought. A doctor updated her. Her mother was stable, prepping for the complex surgery Donato had promised. But Alessia was not allowed to see her. Stress for the patient was the explanation. She was a prisoner in a silk-lined box. Her confinement was broken when Donato summoned her to his study. The room was a temple to power dark wood, floor-to-ceiling books, and a massive desk that looked like a slab of obsidian. He stood by the window, his back to her. Sit, he said, without turning. I'd rather stand. He turned slowly, and the full force of his attention was unnerving. Your defiance is noted. But it is wasted here. I did not bring you here to debate. Then why? Why go through all this? If Lorenzo is just a cockroach, why do you need me? Because cockroaches are best crushed before they breed. Your marriage would have allowed him to breed, to form alliances with men more dangerous than himself. He moved to his desk and picked up a tablet. Your father has been trying to call you. Her heart leapt, a traitorous spark of hope. Let me talk to him. No. He tapped the screen. But you should see this. He slid the tablet across the desk. It was a financial record, a life insurance policy taken out on her mother, for 2 million euros. The beneficiary was Vincenzo Rossi. The start date was 3 weeks ago, right after she had refused Lorenzo. This doesn't mean anything, Alessia stammered, her blood running cold. He was probably just trying to secure funds. Look at the attached clause, Donato said, his voice dangerously soft. She zoomed in. The small print was a death sentence. Payout is doubled in the event of accidental death or post-operative complications. The world tilted. Post-operative complications. The surgery he was supposedly willing to pay for with her freedom. He wouldn't, she whispered, but the words were ash in her mouth. She saw the cold calculation in her father's eyes during their last argument. She remembered his insistence that her mother was a burden. He made a deal with Lorenzo, Donato stated, mercilessly shattering the last of her illusions. Lombardi gets a young wife and a political alliance. Your father gets rid of a financial drain and collects a massive payout. You were the price. Your mother was the intended profit. The tablet clattered to the floor. Alessia's legs gave way, and she crumpled into the chair she had refused. The sobs that racked her body were silent, dry heaves of utter devastation. Her own father. He hadn't just sold her. He had planned to murder her mother. When she looked up, her vision was clear, sharpened by a rage so pure it felt like ice in her veins. Donato was watching her, his expression unreadable. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice steady now, devoid of its earlier tremor. "I want to end this. Permanently." "How?" "You will call your father. You will tell him you escaped my clutches, that you are terrified and alone. You will agree to meet him and Lorenzo to finalize the marriage. You will bring a signed contract, and you'll be there. I will be there. They will not bother you again." Alessia looked at this dangerous man, this self-proclaimed monster who had shown her the horrifying truth about the man who was her flesh and blood. He had kidnapped her, but he was giving her a weapon. Her father had nurtured her, but he had planned her mother's death. The choice was no choice at all. "I'll do it," she said, "but I have conditions." A flicker of what might have been respect crossed Donato's features. "Name them." "First, my mother's surgery happens now, today, and I see her before I make that call. Second, when this is over, my mother and I disappear. New identities, enough money to never have to rely on anyone like my father again." "Agreed. And my father? I don't want him dead." She saw the surprise in his eyes and pressed on, her voice hardening. "Death is too easy. I want him to lose everything. His money, his reputation, his freedom. I want him to sit in a cell and rot, knowing that I was the one who put him there." Donato Marchetti studied her for a long, silent moment. Then he gave a single, slow nod. "That, Alessia Rossi, can be arranged." Alessia stood by her mother's bedside in the pristine medical suite, holding her limp, warm hand. Isabella was still unconscious, her face peaceful for the first time in months, the awful gray pallor replaced by a healthy pink. The beeping of the monitor was no longer a countdown but a steady, reassuring rhythm. A part of Alessia, the part that was still a scared girl, wanted to crawl into the bed beside her and never leave. But the girl was gone, shed like a skin in Donato's study. In her place was a woman forged in betrayal and cold fury. "It is time, Miss Rossi," Silas said from the doorway, his voice a low rumble that didn't disturb the room's serenity. Alessia leaned down, pressed a kiss to her mother's forehead, and whispered, "I'll be back, and we will be free." She turned and walked out of the room without looking back, her spine straight, her heart a lump of iron in her chest. Donato was waiting in his study. He didn't speak, merely handed her a burner phone and a single sheet of paper, a fake marriage contract, already signed with a flourish by a non-existent official. "Remember," he said, his gray eyes holding hers. "You are terrified. You escaped through a service entrance. You are at a payphone. You believe I am holding your mother hostage to manipulate you. You need his protection." Alessia took a deep, shuddering breath, then dialed the number she knew by heart. It rang once, twice. "Alessia?" Her father's voice was sharp, frantic. "Where are you? I've been out of my mind. That monster, Marchetti, he has you." "He has, Mom," she interrupted, pouring every ounce of the fear and panic she'd felt for days into her voice. It wasn't hard. She let it crack, let it tremble. "I got away, Papa. I ran. I'm at a payphone near the old fish market. He said he'd hurt her if I didn't comply. I have the marriage contract. I signed it." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end, then a muffled conversation. She could hear Lorenzo's gruff voice in the background. "Greed. She could almost smell it through the phone. The fish market? That's too exposed, Piccola, Vincenzo said, his tone shifting to a wheedling false comfort. There's a warehouse. Porto Vecchio. Warehouse 7B. We can be there in 20 minutes. We will keep you safe. We will get your mother back. He and Lorenzo were together, just as Donato predicted. Okay, she whispered, feigning exhaustion and defeat. Okay, please hurry. I have the papers. She hung up before he could say more, her hand trembling not with fear, but with anticipation. She looked at Donato. Porto Vecchio, Warehouse 7B, 20 minutes. A ghost of a smile, more a predator's baring of teeth, touched his lips. He spoke into his comms. You heard her. Move into position. No one enters or leaves until I give the signal. The ride to the port was a silent, tense affair. Alessia was taken not to the warehouse, but to a derelict office overlooking it. The glass was grimy, providing perfect cover. Through high-powered binoculars, she watched the scene below. The warehouse was surrounded by shadows that moved with a purpose she now recognized as Donato's men. Right on time, a single sedan pulled up. Her father got out first, his head on a swivel, looking every bit the worried patriarch. Then Lorenzo Lombardi emerged. He was a large man, thick-necked and florid, his expensive suit straining at the seams. He looked smug, victorious. Her stomach churned. They're here, she said, her voice flat. Donato stood beside her, a statue of impending violence. Watch. Down below, her father and Lorenzo entered the warehouse. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shadows converged. Donato's men flowed from the darkness, silent and efficient. There were shouts, the sounds of a brief, brutal struggle. It was over in less than a minute. Come, Donato said. He led her down and into the warehouse. The scene inside was stark. Her father and Lorenzo were on their knees, held firmly by two of Donato's men. Lorenzo's nose was bleeding, his smugness replaced by raw terror. Her father's face was a mask of shock and betrayal when he saw her walking calmly beside Donato. Alessia, thank God. Tell them who you are. She walked up to him, stopping just a foot away. She looked down at the man who had given her life and had then tried to trade her mother's for cash. I know about the insurance policy, father, she said, her voice eerily calm. The one that pays double for post-operative complications. The color drained from Vincenzo's face. What? No, that's a lie. He's poisoned you against me. Lorenzo spat on the ground. You stupid girl. You have no idea what you've done. You've aligned yourself with the devil. Donato stepped forward. I am merely a businessman, Lombardi, collecting a debt. He nodded to his men. Take him. We will discuss the money you embezzled in private. Lorenzo was dragged away, his screams echoing in the cavernous space until a door slammed shut, silencing him. Now it was just them. Alessia, Donato, and her kneeling father. Alessia, please, Vincenzo begged, tears streaming down his face. He's twisting everything. I was doing this for us, for our family. You were doing it for you, she corrected him, her heart a block of ice. You were going to let my mother die. You were going to sell me. You are not my family. She turned to Donato. You promised he wouldn't be killed. I remember. I want him to go to prison. For conspiracy to commit murder. For fraud. For everything. I want the police to have the insurance documents. The financial records. All of it. Donato looked at Vincenzo with utter disdain. It will be done. The realization of his fate finally hit Vincenzo. Not a quick, clean death at the hands of a mafia boss, but a long, humiliating decay in a concrete cell. No, Alessia, don't do this. I'm your father. She didn't look back as she walked out of the warehouse, the sound of his desperate screams fading behind her. The cool night air hit her face, and for the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. Back at the Villa Conti, in Donato's study, he poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. He handed one to her. It is over. Your mother is recovering. Your father will be in a cell by morning. Lorenzo's organization is mine. He took a sip. I will have the papers for you and your mother by tomorrow. New identities. A bank account with more than enough to last 3 lifetimes. You can go anywhere you wish. Alessia stared into the depths of her glass. The promise of safety, of a quiet, anonymous life, was finally within her grasp. It was everything she thought she wanted, but the quiet life felt like a different kind of cage now. A cage of powerlessness. She had tasted what it was like to confront the monsters, to wield power instead of being victimized by it. She looked at Donato Marchetti, the most dangerous man she had ever met, the man who had shown her the truth and given her the strength to act on it. "You once said I was a strategic asset," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I did. What would you have me do if I stayed?" He studied her, his gaze intense, calculating. "I would teach you. Not just to be safe, but to be powerful. To ensure no one, not a father, not a husband, not a rival, could ever dictate your life again. You have a ruthlessness in you, Alessia Rossi. It would be a shame to waste it on a beach somewhere." Alessia set her untouched glass down on his desk. The decision felt inevitable, as if this had been her path all along, waiting for one wrong text to set her upon it. She met his stormy eyes. "I'm not going anywhere. Alessia has made her choice, but what will Donato's world demand of her?" In part 2, she'll face enemies far more dangerous than her father, and discover that power always comes with a price. If you want to see what happens next, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the continuation.